Perfectionism is one of the things that it's most damaging in life, in any area, because we tend to build a lot of ego around it, as well as it keeps us from doing what we actually want to do. We're meant to have our heart's desire. We're meant to feel well in life, and we're meant to be able to feel well about what we do in life. You'll hear people say, oh, but I shouldn't have desires. No, that's not correct. We have desires in life because that's what drives us forward. That's what allows for evolution. Sorting through, am I ready for this or not, has to do with allowing oneself to allow that desire to come to fruition. In other words, to allow it to blossom. I've often said to people, well, if you think that you're supposed to know it all already, then why do you think you need the training? It's a journey that you're going on. It's one that enhances life tremendously, because we start to experience life in a deeper way, closer to nature. And I don't mean that you have to spend all your time in with the trees, although that's nice, but you don't have to. It's more about connecting to our own nature and then living from that place. Embodying the practices will have you be much more successful as a counselor because of your personal experience and because it expands your view of what's possible through your own experience. And that just that view of what's possible when applying the principles of Ayurveda, it gives you the ability actually to look at almost any situation and be able to start to process and come to a solution with it. So, for example, even when there's a situation where someone presents and says, I have a diagnosis for this disease, and you don't know that name, especially these days, because they're creating new names all the time. And so that you can say, well, how are you experiencing that? And when you do that, then you're drawing on your own experience and your understanding of the principles. And that's empowering. And then that opens up a dialogue that can be a great opening for solutions. You don't have to be perfect in your embodiment of Ayurveda, but when you're in the process of life with Ayurveda, it has you be more open and more easily going to solutions for the clients that you're working with. Stepping into a training in Ayurveda, we think about and say, oh, I'm going to go and study. But that study is actually a tremendous life learning. It's very different than learning academically and learning just from a textbook or learning just a rote set of information. There's a life-giving that comes from the whole process. I've heard people often say, oh, but I don't know anatomy and I don't have a good background in Western medicine and that. And you don't need that. As a matter of fact, we teach anatomy from the Ayurveda perspective because we look at it very differently. We also look at it in terms of function. That is part of the training. And the more you embody the practices, the easier it is to understand those functions and how it all works together. Those are things that come as part of a holistic training. You're learning information, and then you're taking it and using that information and applying it. I'm thinking of one student who, when she came to the counselor training, she had done Agni therapy first and had had very nice results, but was still having some difficulties in her own way, both physically and mentally and emotionally. And as she came into the training, she started to see how some of her past she was still carrying in a very heavy way, but also that she had some addiction in the past. And rather than allowing herself to process through that addiction, even though she wasn't active in it at this point, but recognizing that she needed to be able to process the emotions around that and to approach it on a spiritual basis In other words, that she needed a deeper connection to herself. She had some counseling with us and was able to recognize that, yes, that she had this big, heavy bag that she was carrying and that wasn't processing or allowing herself to be free of it. And so in that, then as she went through, came into more of the lessons in the middle of the training, and that then she made some shifts and took up the spiritual practices that she'd had previously, actually, and recognized how much freedom she had from it. And then, of course, then the physical problems started clearing up. And actually, she's just finishing the training next week, actually, her final exam. When someone has some desire and maybe they're doing some practices with Ayurveda, but maybe not consistently, I encourage people to get clear about their desires and their priorities in life, and to recognize that we're not meant to walk around with a sense of emptiness. We all have times where we're in between things. So we say we're in the hallway, right? We've closed one door and we're getting ready to walk through the next door. And the important thing is to keep going forward and take some small steps that will bring some of that clarity. Taking one little step, perhaps it's commit to 5 minutes of meditation or just sitting in stillness and breathing for 5 minutes in the day. That's all. Even 3 minutes is a place to start. Those kinds of things that take us inside to connect with where that desire is coming from. It's connecting the heart and the head. You just take the small steps and let them build up, because we are meant to have our heart's desire.